Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Brittney Burchett, Director of Tech Strategy and Innovation at UNISYS.
I was the fourth of four kids growing up. And growing up, my parents always said to me, Brittney, if you were our first child, you would have been our last. And I don't know why they said this. I mean, I just had this relentless curiosity for always asking, what if, and why again? And through this practice, I developed a mindset of not accepting the status quo. If you think about it, innovation is all about approaching something when there is not one final answer. Innovation is a journey with an always moving destination. To be successful with it requires good companions, a means of travel, and some sort of direction, as well as a mindset willing to accept all the good and all the unfortunate events that may occur. For they are what steers us to the approach we take. We all have our journeys of what steered us to being innovation leaders for our company. And I know I didn't wake up one day and say to myself, oh, I think I want to be an innovation leader for UNISYS when I grow up. I mean, did you? For your companies? For UNISYS to be approaching innovation the way that they do, and for me to be standing here today, our journey together required one specific aha moment. I was wrapping up my junior year at Temple University for electrical engineering, and up until this point, my whole college career was centered around pursuing the only path that I knew to be true for curiosity, research, and academia, compared to that alternative path, industry, which I had convinced myself had no tolerance for someone like me and required the drinking of the Kool-Aid and being surrounded by gray cubicle farms and please be quiet signs. So I worked in a lab for some time, and I realized that this absolutely wasn't for me. And as sometimes things often go, an opportunity in disguise was presented. As VP of the Temple IEEE chapter, I was voluntold by a professor, and we all know how that goes, right? To attend an upcoming event, an IEEE annual event at the Union League in Center City, Philadelphia, you know, home of the champs. Having been to some of these networking events before, this one went on in similar fashion. Cool location, hors d'oeuvres, sit down for dinner, and spin the wheel on what kind of event and presentation that was going to be given. Little did I know, and I guess UNISYS for that matter, that in about 20 minutes from this moment, the content and presenter of this keynote speech would influence this whole thing. You see, the keynote speech was to be delivered by a man named Jim Thompson, chief engineer at UNISYS. And let me just tell you a little bit about Jim. He's a bit of a maverick, and he's a big advocate that rules are meant to be questioned and maybe bent. In his speech, Jim showcased this IT company that throughout its 140 plus years has always done remarkable things, producing a variety of technologies that have led and influenced modern day computing as we know it, and always had to reinvent itself while never losing sight of what makes it special. Developing solutions that always have to go right for some of the world's most demanding businesses and governments on Earth. But what I really found to be so compelling about this whole thing was that for a company to do this, it needed to never accept its current limitations. It needed to always challenge that status quo and in turn define that next new state. With a bow to tie it all off, he finished with what had to be true about a company to have such a rich company history. With the right people in the right environment, innovation becomes imagining the unimagined. And an innovator then becomes someone who thinks differently and always asks why. And just imagine for a second, there's this light bulb in my head, and it's literally blowing a fuse. Because he wasn't just presenting about a company, he was painting a picture in my head of a path that I'd always hoped to be true, but had no idea where the heck that trail had started. I decided right then and there that I wanted to work for this company. And as luck would have it, I landed a summer internship, and when I graduated from college, I accepted a full-time offer as a software engineer. After working for UNISYS for a few months, it was time to harness this curiosity and drive and come up with an innovation idea. Our journey continues where so many great stories often begin, over drinks. It was a random late summer Wednesday, and a few of us decided to go to our favorite sports bar. I decided that this was the perfect opportunity to showcase this idea that I had. When I finished my pitch, I looked around and I realized that I wasn't alone in thinking that this idea could go somewhere. The next day, we rallied additional team members, and over the course of the next few months, we worked on this idea. Until finally, when we were ready, that meeting was scheduled that would make or break the fate of all of this. We didn't make any significant mistakes, but we also didn't get the outcome that we wanted, because we just spent the last few months focusing on this really cool technology and very little time trying to figure out if this idea had any business merit. So what do you think happened to this idea? It died. Weirdly, though, I walked out of that conference room and I said to myself, this wasn't going to be the last time that I took a stab at being an innovator. With that, I had a thought. UNISYS has such depth of knowledge across the company, and I'm pretty sure that someone in this 20+ thousand person company has the know-how to take ideas like this one forward. Eureka. UNISYS needed some sort of mechanism that can not only promote all of these innovation ideas, but continue to connect all the brain power across the company. At that moment, I thought back to Jim's presentation. The status quo needed to be challenged. When coming up with something new or something completely different, timing is everything. And lucky for this, UNISYS was at the right time for change. We were experiencing changes, both demographically and geographically, hiring a variety of new people from around the world, putting us in this situation of having to take a well-established culture and merging it with new members, new ideas, and new ways of thinking. And this is actually pretty crucial, especially when it comes to innovation. Because of our history, our identity, and now this new situation, we were presented with a very unique opportunity that would require us to think about how we approached innovation differently. Because we're not a startup, and we're not one of the top 5. Those rankings have already been given. But we are UNISYS. And it was because of this that there was so much information out there about what other companies were doing, given their culture at hand, what works, what's the best approach, what's the best way to start. But we couldn't let their rules define our practice. We needed to let our practice, and whatever it morphed to be, define our rules. Lucky for this, there was leadership support, as well as it wouldn't be the first time or that we would have to start from scratch, because there were innovation-related activities going on, but they were limited to size, scope, and visibility. We needed something, and it couldn't be more clear, that was inclusive at its very core. Over the next year or so, the groundwork would start to be laid, And that intersection point of the right moment, right place, right people willing to drive something like this forward became more ripe. But how did we do it? With a master plan, of course. And what is that master plan? A vision. A vision with a plan, all backed behind a cheesy motto that up until this point, I had kept very near and dear to myself and what I will call a few lucky others. We needed to unite the company through innovation. We needed to take all of this intelligence of the people of UNISYS that make the impossible possible together. And so that cheesy saying actually became the best starting point for an approach. And with some direction, it was time to execute on the master plan. Fast forwarding to present time, we established an innovation framework that consisted of a few key parts. What first came together by a team of passionate individuals and team was later enhanced by a community of the masses, all with the same vision in mind. And we needed to look beyond that infamous P word, right? Process. And establish a framework that created a community of collaboration across the company in order to take opportunities forward. By utilizing an enabling tool, all ideas could be given the transparency and support and be powered by the curiosity of our people. Innovation at UNISYS has been reimagined for a new era full of embracing the what-if questions. And while still navigating to our final destination, our journey thus far has taught us a great deal. Since the beginning, we've had a lot of learnings and directional changes that had to come together. But through it all, we've realized that there were 5 key factors in the success of starting and scaling a corporate innovation practice from the ground up. Instead of telling you exactly where we started, I'm going to tell you where we didn't start. Traditional tiger teams, which is a phrase used to describe a team formed of more experienced and senior ranking individuals. And historically, we're very successful at solving hard problems at UNISYS. But innovation is not your typical hard problem. Innovation is different because innovation is centered around people and culture rather than on a finite set of requirements. We needed something to be created that anyone could stand behind, believe in, or participate. It's now 2015, and for another right time, right place moment, I was in a meeting with a mentor of mine named Steve, and he had just been tasked to establish a formal innovation practice. Without thinking, and I know very unlike my character, I whip out this stack of paper of all of my corporate innovation research findings, and oh yes, I did carry it with me at all times, because you really never know when that right opportunity will present itself, and I wanted to be ready. After he looked at it, he said to me that I should come back in a few days with a more coherent and concise recommendation. So with that, I came back a few days later, and to my surprise, there was a woman sitting in his office whom I had never met. Her name was Suzanne, and we would be brought together to work on coming up with an innovation practice. And in working together, we would figure out our first success enabler. We formed a team that didn't fit the mold. We were an unusual team, which is typically a team that's diverse and inclusive of all generations, functions, geographies, and positions. Basically, they reduce the gap between people and bring together that wisdom of the past with passion and new ways of thinking. So together with Steve, our executive sponsor, our differences actually enabled us to come up with an approach that was inclusive to anyone throughout the company. Our small team quickly grew to include more individuals from around the globe to serve as what we called innovation site leaders and idea coaches. Not before long, the power took hold of when the right people worked together. While off to a good start, we soon hit the cultural realities associated with that infamous innovation black hole. Because you see, when people spend a lot of time working on their ideas, they also become very passionate about their ideas, and rightfully so. We needed something in place that gave some sort of ideation focus, collection, transparency, and support from a larger community. So we needed to eliminate the black hole and really allow for We needed to start small, think big, and have the realization that this needs to be for the masses. So we rolled out a tool and we organized idea submissions around emerging technologies that were of interest to the company to provide direction and in turn, in theory, get more ideas that we could take forward. By having something real to show that was more organized than in the past, we started to get the necessary buy-in from leaders and subject matter experts from throughout the company. Through those connections, we created this initial pool of people that were willing and interested to work with us in reviewing ideas and taking them forward. By the middle of 2016, we had a tool that enabled a formation of a pipeline with ideas more aligned to company interest and experts that could help take them forward, collapsing that innovation black hole. As roots took hold and more unusual teams were formed, ideas were becoming more refined and more were flowing through the pipeline from research to official proof of concepts. As those successes became more well-known, curiosity stirred and engagement started to become more than just a leisurely stroll through the tool. And we started to see this cultural shift that together we can influence and even make a difference in the future of UNISYS. Up until this point, connected and directed was a term that we used that described the focusing of ideas and idea submissions and manually connecting them to those in the company that could review, provide evaluations, and help take forward. While this seems like it was taking us on the right direction, we realized that there was still a disconnect between these technology-based ideas and what problems, if any, they solved for our industries. We realized that we were still acting in a siloed manner. We needed to go back to the basics, connecting and empowering people to do what they're good at. And officially break down the company silos. We realized that we needed to partner with our businesses from the very beginning, defining innovation challenges, or what we called campaigns, focused around client problems, proposed solutions, or future industry visions that were in turn looking for technology ideas and solutions. All the while continuing to communicate the capabilities and skill sets of our community and really focusing on that bi-directional flow. Our innovation practice was now centered around real problems and real opportunities that we could then take our energy and innovate against that, providing the avenue and alignment of our innovation community and their skill sets, and further influencing any further technical research or skills that we need to build. By the end of 2016, we found an industry, our life sciences industry team, to partner with us on this shift in thinking and strategy. In 2017, our innovation journey took a few twists and turns. Jim from before took over as our executive sponsor, and I took the reins. Don't worry, I made sure that they were sure. And we started asking people what they thought about the innovation practice. And in doing that, we realized that we had started to become way too prescriptive. Innovation by nature is chaotic, and it's through that chaos that you actually come up with different ideas and new ways of thinking. Our innovation framework needed a halo of inspiration. When we kicked off our life sciences pilot, we provided inspiration in the form of kickoff and ongoing activities, all the while still allowing, encouraging, promoting the chaos that naturally comes with innovation. From this pilot, we adopted a multi-channel innovation approach that moving forward, each time we partnered with one of our industries, we kicked it off by providing an overview of the industry, their client problems, existing clients, use cases, pain points, as well as the specific details on the challenge itself. We also provided ongoing inspirational activities in the forms of brainstorming sessions of all shapes and sizes, Q&As with subject matter experts, hackathons, make it your own days, and really just trying a bunch of different things. Because ideas can come from anywhere and anyone, and you can't take a one-size-fits-all approach to all of this. And it was important that we allowed people to try different things and then provided an outlet for them to come back and talk about what they were doing, how it was working, and how they can implement it at their location. At the end of this pilot, we continued with our journey with even more travelers. As we continued to communicate the practice and get even more industries to come in and partner with us. Interestingly, though, it was through the grassroots effect that this whole practice was starting to get the momentum behind the whole thing. By leveraging the power of your people, you'll be so surprised with what you can accomplish. Even people that were once indifferent or didn't participate at all were now coming together, forming ideas, leading teams. And as more and more people started doing that, more and more people started to join in on this practice. Our early adopters started to become our revisiting customers. And when we wanted to connect with a group that we may not have had a connection point to, we tapped into a skill that I will refer to as your inner sales. And found those friendlies that were willing to go on this journey with us. As time passed and even more people came on board, our results started to shift from slideware to real results. And with each partnership with an industry, we added one more recommendation that could further get more people on board, holding true that the power of your practice, the power of your people gives your practice power. The grassroots effects started to make this whole thing an unstoppable force. And while we're not done yet, we continue to listen, adjust, and show the benefits of this practice. Participating in the innovation practice has naturally started to become a feeling of everyone's responsibility. In the beginning of all this, it was said that while making connections across the company was great, it was more of an intangible benefit than a tangible results. To date, we've partnered with our life sciences, financial services, federal, public sector, and soon-to-be transportation business units. We've also created a community of thousands of participants that have representative of all of our business units throughout the company. And from these connections, we're starting to see that connections really do yield something tangible, because connections yield better results. From the connections made from this innovation practice, we now have a broader understanding across the board. We now know what everyone's doing and how we can help each other, as well as our community understands how to better apply technologies to client problems. And our industries now understand the capabilities and skill sets of our community. By connecting people to people, we've started to see this elimination of duplicate work and our ability to get ideas to market more quickly. Through these connections, we are starting to see a sustainable practice. And as a whole, the company is starting to see that knowledge transfer, skill building, and just being able to get things out there more quickly. With the right approach and some elapsed time, since 2016, we've seen a year-over-year increase by the decimal places and an idea pipeline that's increased over 500%. By connecting the company through innovation, we can now see the method behind that madness of being successful because we're connected. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks.
All right, let's bring Derek and Brittney back out. Oh, sorry, Brittney and Derek out. Thank you, guys. Great presentation. So I think we're gonna have to start with introducing your friend here. So who's this and why is he here?
Why are you here?
I was
Just kidding.
wrong place, wrong time. What can I say? No, I work with Brittney on the innovation program. We kind of met several years ago when she was doing stuff. I was doing stuff independently in California. Brittney was doing stuff out of the East Coast, and accidentally we hooked up, kind of thing. So it's been a journey ever since then. We work very well together. It's the old and the young, the old and the new kind of thing, and it's worked really well for us. I mean, I really enjoy working with her, and because she's young, I always used to tell the new people who joined the company working for me in the old days that they're at a great juncture because they're not experienced yet, so they don't know things can't get done, and that is very, very powerful. When you don't know something can't get done, then you sometimes go ahead and do it, and
You'll get it done.
You'll get it done. And this young woman here was very much in that vein when I first met her. She hadn't figured out yet that this stuff can't get done. And as a result of that, we've got an innovation program that's really kicking off, and some of the metrics are actually coming in very well. So,
Which Derek will be doing a workshop tomorrow.
yes.
Cool.
Working with Steve.
So Brittney, we talked a little bit before the presentation, but you have a nickname for Derek?
Derek is a work dad.
What's work dad?
Do you know how parents say that it takes an army to raise a child? I always say it takes a UNISYS to raise a Brittney. And I have a lot of work parents, as I like to call them, throughout the company that have served as more than just a mentor. So work parent is, to me, it's that badge of honor. You know, you've graduated from mentor to work parent.
The Brittney family tree is really interesting.
Yeah.
You try and follow, you know, I've got to look at some of these co-workers in a new light. That must be my work sister-in-law, if that's, you know.
So one of the things that I thought was fascinating about their story was this, dichotomy between the two of them. And, Derek's been, how long have you been at UNISYS for?
Oh, 40 years.
40 years. And, I guess we'll...
Thank you.
And UNISYS was actually, legacy Burroughs and created one of the first computers, right? So that's been the UNIVAC and stuff like that. So massive legacy of technological innovation, and well known for mainframe products. So I'm curious, Derek, you told me a story one time about how innovation was sort of different, a generation ago, and what the things you had to do to kind of wring innovation out of the team.
Yeah, I mean, we had gone through many attempts at innovations, perhaps the best way to put it. And, to put it in context, a company that survived 100 and plus years, 140 years or whatever, it has to be innovating. So, I'm not kind of knocking UNISYS in that sense. But it tended to be more siloed. I mean, I work in the engineering part of the company, which is actually one of the smallest parts of the company. But in engineering, we tended to be siloed and trying different things. And when I had a software group, we did a bunch of things that were innovative, and some made it into products, some didn't. But as we tried to organize it more in terms of coordinated innovation, that's where we hadn't had a lot of success. I mean, I remember years ago we ran software development challenges. That was popular around the time we were doing it. Other people were doing it. We thought we could do it too. Nothing really came from it. It was done in the engineering sense. There was no connection to, a need that marketing or the company had. So it wasn't really, panning out for us. But there were these silos of groups in engineering doing their own thing. And, I was doing it in Irvine. There were people doing it in Malvern. There were people doing it at our sites in Roseville, Minnesota. So it was all going on uncoordinated in that sense. And what's happening now is it's being pulled together under this umbrella, and we're making real progress.
And Brittney, you told me a story about kind of growing this initiative up within technology, but then realizing you needed to kind of look outside, and so can you share some of that? The jumping across silos to the life sciences team and all that stuff. What was the sort of tipping point moment when you knew you had to do that? You knew you had to look beyond technology.
I think it really became evident when we started to have a lot of ideas that weren't able to be channeled to someone that could help review it or refine it. I mean, engineers naturally are great problem solvers, but by the title, they aren't necessarily the best in business. So asking an engineer to do something that they could be spending their time doing something that actually is beneficial, which is fleshing out the technology, it just seemed that it was the right moment to get that support and that help back in. I mean, it's when you're starting innovation and culture go hand in hand, right? So if you have all of these ideas and they're not going anywhere, it's not necessarily looking good for your practice and what you're trying to start. And the whole, Tiger team, unusual teams, it really is about getting different people together to bring their experiences to the table, to bring their voices to the table, their perspectives, and flesh out ideas.
So one of the things I liked about the two of them is I saw a chart a couple of years ago, and Brittney's going to smack me over the head on this one, but I saw a chart that showed the percentage of people in the workplace, and it was how many were baby boomers, how many were Generation Xers, and how many were millennials. And I'm a Generation Xer, and we had like 3 years at the top. The boomers were running the show, and then the Gen Xers had, I think, 3 years where they were the dominant population, and then the millennials came over and took over. So I think there's an interesting storyline here about not just that there are multiple generations in the workforce, but how is innovation changing? How does it have to change to sort of adapt to that, to course correct, to make it work? I don't know, Derek, you told me about teams where you had to create shade for them and sort of run cover, and then Brittney's taking a totally different approach where she's out internal selling and so any thoughts on just sort of the nuance of how innovation's changed over the years?
Well, I mean, to your point, some of the stuff we were doing, we're a large company, and any large company, you tend to have silos. So we were operating in silos. And some of the things we were doing, a little bit of competition, shall we say. So some of the stuff that was being done, my job was to provide a little bit of shade, kind of thing, so people didn't necessarily see all of what was going on. So we could get the innovation to a certain point, then you fessed up about it. So,
and you just said they were working on some other projects at the time, or?
No one asked. So, I mean, everything was getting done. And, I really believe that you have to be doing innovation all the time. It's not something you say, hey, we're going to innovate today and then tomorrow we're not. So you have to be doing this all the time. So it was kind of accepted. I mean, my bosses knew what was going on, kind of thing, but it wasn't broadcast to everybody that this is what's working. But the people, around us knew what was going on. It wasn't a big secret. But to people in different facilities, were they aware of what was going on? Maybe, maybe not, kind of thing. But that's what let it, gestate to the point where you had the proof of concept, where you can now say, hey, here's what we've got.
Yep.
Because I had experts, community experts again, tell me something we had just done wasn't possible. And it's like, yeah, missing something here. This is not a PowerPoint. It's like, it's running. So it let you get it to that point without the naysayers, trampling on it.
So Derek's a little humble, but he basically got their mainframe software running on a laptop.
That was many, many moons ago.
Kind of blew away the whole business model of the mainframe.
We put mainframes on laptops in the 90s, which went down really well at the UNISYS conferences we did. It was a great way for the sales force to use it if they wanted. Yep. We even put a mainframe in a USB stick, so you didn't have to install it. Just plug it into your laptop, boot it up. Didn't serve any purpose, but it was a technology demonstrator, So you have a mainframe and a USB stick, but what are you connected to? I mean, you can't exactly hook it up to an EMC disk rack to do anything useful. But as a demonstration of technology, they were very effective demonstrations of technology to do that stuff.
By contrast, Brittney, you were in a place where you were trying to grab attention. You're trying to get people aware of what was going on. So what was the driver there? Why did you, you talked about mentors and this internal selling process. So what was that journey like? Were you comfortable in that? Were people pushing you to do that? And B, kind of why did you feel the need to kind of, blare the trumpets and let people know you're there?
We knew she was there.
Slightly tone deaf. You can hear me before you see me.
All the way in Irvine.
I think for me, when I first started working at the company, I was constantly amazed by just the passion behind the engineering team and all the things that they've done. I mean, Derek speaks to the things that they did out in Irvine. In Malvern, it was the same situation. And I kept hearing all of these great ideas and the passion behind it, that we couldn't let those ideas get lost. And with a little help, those ideas could actually go somewhere. Or on the flip side, being educated on what all of our industries are doing at the latest and greatest and up to date, I think also serves for better and more aligned ideas for what you're looking for. I attribute all of this to the work parents of UNISYS, because they were the ones that gave the encouragement, gave the backing, as well as helped to describe, here's the next step, here's how you do the cold calls, here's how you act like a an inner salesperson or an internal salesperson, and really just kept pushing. It wasn't something that necessarily was going to be driven by top down, but it needed to be that two-way street, bottoms up and tops down.
What did, when you went out and engaged with these other business units, verticals, I'm not sure exactly what you call them, but like what level were you engaging? Were you saying, hey, we'll come and run a hackathon for you, or hey, what's a problem you need solved, or like what was the sales pitch to them, if you will?
It first started out as just letting them know this is what we're doing, when it was more of a technology first approach. And as they started to come in, review ideas, we started to just make the natural relationships with other industries. And it wasn't until we got connected with our life sciences team.
So
which
let me just clarify. So you were just coming and saying, here's what technology is working on. Are you interested?
This is what technology innovation is all about.
Okay.
Showcasing, we had a tool prior to Bright Idea, so showing how it was organized, what ideas were coming in, the amount of users, that sort of thing, and saying, we'd like to work with you either from having your expertise as well as you influencing any research you may need or any skills you think are coming down the line.
But primarily, these were ideas that bubbled up from within technology,
Yes.
and you were kind of sharing them, showcasing them to some of the other,
Right.
Vertical business units.
Right. But once we made the switch with our life sciences team and had something to show, this is the business first way of shifting innovation campaigns, as we call them, or challenges, people started to get it. And our next one was with our public sector group, and from there, we had a backlog of industries wanting to run these campaigns.
And would you go to the industry and say, maybe not originally, but would you say what challenge you want to run, or here's a challenge, or what are your business problems? What was the engagement there?
It's a little bit of all of it. It's feeling out what they're looking for. So each one of our industries was essentially a new client where we had to go back, introduce ourselves, talk about what we're doing, and talk through the different types of opportunities we can do together. So it could be around a specific client problem. It could be around something farther out, more of a vision of the future. Or it could be around something that they want to create but don't know the best way or want more technical ideas to make it happen.
Got it.
And in addition to that, I guess our selling point is also that, now that we have thousands of people, you're getting thousands of people to look at this problem. You're getting hundreds of ideas, and then from there, we can take forward some proof of concepts, some lightweight demos, whatever you need to go off and figure out that business value.
So it sounds to me like it basically started from, you were developing ideas within technology, kind of shopping them around, and then you sort of flipped the script, and then you basically started going directly to the business units and saying, how can we help you? Right. What do you need? How can we augment the products and services you're already working on or delivering?
Right.
Okay, well, we're running short on time, but Derek, if Brittney was your first child, would you have had a second?
Well, I look at it. I've got two boys, so I look at Brittney as the daughter I didn't have. But I avoided all that messy, terrible twos and terrible teens and all that. I kind of inherited her when she was fully formed and fully grown, mid-20s. That's the way to do it. So.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate it. And I guess we'll walk out.